New historical research shows that the traditional dates of the Islamic Hijrah are wrong. Will the Islamic historians go back and correct the standard Islamic narrative? Let's wrap up this discussion concerning those discrepancies in this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and I want to welcome you back to a continuation of this interesting video series concerning contradictions between the standard Islamic narrative and some additional historical writings that are being unearthed, or at least being discovered, or maybe they were around for a while, but no one actually paid close attention to them. Of course, we're talking about this video series that we're doing with our dear brother and friend Mel concerning a contradiction between the Islamic dates regarding certain Islamic conquest in the modern day Iraq that took place in early Islamic history, and also the war of apostasy, or the apostate wars. And so far, we have shown without a shadow of a doubt that there is a gap, or at least a difference of approximately 4 years. In other words, some of those dating given to us by the standard Islamic narrative are 4 years more than they should be. In other words, we have to go backward 4 years to be able to line up some of these events based on other writings from the area or the region itself. With us here to continue basically discussions and unpacking this video series, and maybe even concluding it for us today, is our dear brother Mel. Mel, welcome back as always, and thank you for this wonderful research that you have done, and for the references that you have provided for our viewers to go and investigate these findings. So what are we going to at least discuss today in regard to that topic?
Well, thank you for having me back. So today what we're going to do is resolve the mystery of why the Arabic sources that seem to get so much of the details correct managed to give what appears to be the wrong Hijra dates. So the author that we looked at was able to give a lot of details about the Persian rulers, but the Hijra dates seem to be wrong. If we look at this chart that appears in Hur Shariati's book, we can see that the battles occurred between 628 and 632, and this is following on from Khusro's deaths, during which time there was chaos, there was a lot of change of rulers, and of course the Arabs took advantage of that. But how do we account for Saif's accurate report on the battles and the respective reigning monarchs, and yet give an inaccurate Hijra dating? So with a little bit of thought, it became obvious to me that he's using a different standard in terms of when the founding of the Arab empire began. I did wonder whether his history was doctored later, or was the Hijra dating changed. I think Saif's testimony was accurate. It makes no sense for him to get the Persian rulers so correct and yet to get the Hijra wrong. I think when he mentions the Hijra year, he meant from 618 AD and not 622 AD. And this is not mere speculation, because we have a copious amount of early evidence to suggest that the year of the Arab originally was 618 and not 622. So here is some of the evidence. So outside sources right up to 754 claim the year of the Arabs began in 618. We have the Hispanic Chronicle, 754. And it says, and I quote, "The Saracens rebelled in 618, the 7th year of the Emperor Heraclius, and appropriated for themselves Syria, Arabia, and Mesopotamia." Likewise, the Byzantine Arab Chronicle of 741, relying on the Syriac common source, also says, similarly, "In the 7th year of the aforesaid ruler, Heraclius, the Saracens, in rebellion and hostile to the inhabitants of the provinces of the Romans, by stealth rather than by open attacks, incite the neighboring tribes." So the 7th year of Heraclius, once again, is 618 AD. So this is in total contradiction to the standard Islamic narrative. And what this has in its favor is this is really early. You know, these are very good sources, very early, and they're not affected by the later narrative that was created by the Abbasids and other rulers later. We also have this very interesting Chinese source. It's in Chinese, and it was gathered when the Taiyaye sent an envoy in 651, and it was contained in the Ju Tang Shu, and I have the English translation here. It says, in the second year of Yanggu era, 651, the Dashi began to send envoys to pay tributes. The king's surname is Dashi, that's the equivalent of the Taiyaye, and his first name is Kanmi Muo Muo Ni, and this is a Chinese rendering of Amir al-Mu'minin, which means commander of the believers. The envoy said that it had been 34 years since the establishment of the kingdom, during which time the crown had been passed down to 3 kings. So if we do a little bit of maths, we work out that the year being referred to is 617 or 618. Considering the other sources, I think it's safe to say it's 618. And then we have also this other independent piece of evidence, and it comes from Samarkand. So we're covering quite a geographical range here in terms of sources. This is from 719. The ruler of the Kang, which is the Samarkand, wrote to the Tang emperor and said it was the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Taiyaye kingdom. And the letter was, as we said, from the ruler of Kang. He was requesting military assistance from the Tang emperor in the year 719 AD. The letter says that this year, 719 AD, is the exact 100th year since the founding of the Dashi. So 100 years since the founding obviously wouldn't mean 619, it's 100 years since, so that would be 618. Again, that lines up with the other 3 sources. So therefore we conclude that the Taiyaye, or Dashi as it is called in Chinese, was founded in 618. Okay. What all these pieces of evidence suggest is that the beginning of the Taiyaye kingdom was in 618 AD, and certainly not in 622. Poor Shariati ignored the AH, as we saw in the earlier episodes, and looked at other evidence. But what if we take the AH seriously, but instead take the other sources that put year 1 of the Arabs as 618? So let's run an experiment and compare the dates with poor Shariati's. I don't know if Al, if you want to come in on any of that. So
no,
far.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the Chinese historical writings came up a number of times, and it seemed like they've been really giving us some key milestones dating-wise, not just for this incident, but even in the past shows we did. Some of their own writings, like concerning Al-Tawa'i or Taiyaye, like you call them in English, obviously, that particular tribe. It seemed like they have some really interesting milestones, and it seemed like the record keeping have proven to be very accurate based on everything that we have examined. So it is adding more to the conclusions that we are reaching, and it seemed like the historical writings or record on the Islamic side is off, and maybe that's the record that needs to be adjusted.
Absolutely. So if we plug in the years, so if we presume that the Taiyaye started their kingdom in 618, 619, and we can basically work out what the real years were. So we have poor Shariati's estimate for the years. Let's take Saif ibn Umar's year of the Hijrah, but based on this system now, and see how it lines up. And this is something I did a few days ago, and I was amazed to see how accurate it was. So here we go. So as you can see, if you look at the 3rd and 4th column, the 3rd column is basically what Saif ibn Umar's years would be in AD, if we assume he's talking about 618. And in the 4th column, we see poor Shariati's dating. Essentially,
Mel, could you show that slide, because you're talking about something that I am not seeing at the moment.
Oh, it's showing on my side. Is none of the slides appearing?
No, just this particular one that you're saying. There you go. Now we can see it. I just want the the viewers to follow along.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll repeat this part here. So the third column is basically what would happen if you take Saif's Hijra dating based on 618. And in the fourth column is what Pur Shariati has estimated as the dating of the battles based on the Persian leaders. And as you can see, in every case bar the first one, they totally line up, which is really strengthening the case that actually Saif's account is very accurate. I think it's possible that the very first dating might be because of a difference of opinion on terms of when the founding happened. Perhaps a month difference might have made a difference in terms of the year. That's probably what's happening. But apart from that, it all lines up. So we can be pretty confident that Pur Shariati is correct in terms of her dating. We can also be confident that Saif is correct in his account, at least in terms of the dating. Except he's using the old Hijra dating, which is referred to by those four sources. What's interesting now is when did they change the Hijra dating? That's something for further research. I have some suspicions that we're talking about the 9th or 10th centuries when that dating was changed, but this completely explodes the standard Islamic narrative. It means that we've been using faulty data in the standard Islamic narrative for decades. And I think the historians will have to go back and rewrite the history of Islam based on this information, because they've, in every case, they've got the wrong dates. So this is really crucial stuff. So
Absolutely.
in conclusion,
it seems like there is a number of PhD research topics here for many people to focus on.
Absolutely. I think this is just the beginning. There's lots more to be done, and I'm sure the more that we delve into all the other sources that are out there, it will only strengthen the case. So in conclusion, it's occurred to me that the Sin says the Hijra, which is an immigration to Medina, occurred in 622 and Muhammad died in 632, i.e. 10 years later. Now we know that the year of the Arab began in 618 AD, when the Arabs set out to raid different lands, which is kind of an immigration if you think about it. And Khosrow died in 628 AD, i.e. 10 years later. I asked the audience, is that merely a coincidence? I think not. I think that's too much of a coincidence that we have such a parallel between the two. And I think around the time that they changed the Hijra dating was probably the time that they started changing the standard Islamic narrative to make Muhammad die in 632 and all of the other bits and pieces, such as the 10-year period that he ruled after immigrating to Medina. So hand it back to you.
Absolutely. I think we need to focus now on why this 4-year intentional gap. There has to have been something significant that either caused the Abbasids, as we mentioned earlier in one of those episodes, to really backtrack some of these dates, or maybe choose a starting point and go backward from there. It could be maybe lack of record keeping. It could be as simple as that. But it seemed like there is some intentional, work that is being done for whatever reason, either to amplify something or hide something, if you wish. So I'm hoping that the more research you and others are doing, the more we are going to unearth the background behind this gap. And it seemed like to be a consistent gap so far.
Yeah, I would say, just as a hunch that I have, I would say that when the Abbasids took over, they distanced themselves from the original tribe, which was the Tayyaye. In the standard Islamic narrative, who is the tribe of Muhammad?
Well, it was Quraysh, of course. Yeah.
Quraysh. So they're referring to a different tribe. They're not referring to the Tayyaye in the standard Islamic narrative. So a big question is, why have they gone from the Tayyaye to the Quraysh? I would suggest that perhaps it's really to do with power. They want to say that they're the ones who are entitled to rule. If they say it's the Tayyaye who are the founders, then they have no right to rule, because they are not the Tayyaye. or at
Right.
least there are at least other people who belong to this tribe who are as equally entitled to rule. So I think that might be the answer, but it's just a hunch and it's a bit of speculation, but I think it makes logical sense. Usually, a lot of these things are to do with power and the need to hold on to that power.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you again, Mel. And I'm sure we will continue to unearth many of these, shall we say, discrepancies. And the idea here is really not to show the problem and the contradictions, but to help our Muslim friends begin to examine every single thing, basically, about the Islamic dating and some of the events mentioned, and really question the historicity of a lot of things altogether, including really when did the Prophet of Islam came into the scene, when was he born, when did he die, some of the main events like the collection or compilation of the Quran, and the list can go on and on and on. So thank you as always for this hard work, and I look forward really to another interesting video series as this in the near future. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, everyone. This is Al Fadi over and out. God bless. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/Sira International, or just click on the link below.